Chapter 2, Basic Merchandising Mathematics, Part 3. In the last lecture, you learned the unit measure, including the dozen, gross, and pair, and how to calculate this unit measure related to the fractions. And you also learned basic percentage calculation. And today, we will discuss how to use this percent. Because you also learn the importance of using these percents in retail mass and buying. So let's go ahead and talk about this using percent. A problem involving a percent has three major components, which include percentage amount, percent, and base. And the percentage amount is the fractional amount, the percent is the rate, and the base is gonna be the total amount. So to calculate all this, you need to know about these three important components to solve the problem. And if you look at the example, it's gonna be much easier to understand. And here you go. And whenever we talk about some example questions, I really want you to think about the situation and apply that and imagine the situation, and instead of like just memorizing the formulas and so on, I really encourage you to think about the situation and think about the flows of all these things. So here is the example. As a salesperson in the children's department, Jane will receive a 10% commission on all sales that she makes. And during August, she sold $1,500 worth of goods. Her commission for that month was $150. And following are the three parts of this percentage problem. And this actual question, this example, includes all the components that we discussed in the previous slide. So including the percentage amount, percent, and the base. So let's look at the solution. So base. What is the base here? You have to think about what's gonna be the total amount, right? So this case, you will see that $1,500 is the total sale. So you have to put that as a base. And second component, percent. How much percentage she will receive as a commission? That is here, 10%. Or you can either change it to the decimal form. 10% is equal to 0.1. And third, percentage amount. That's gonna be that maybe the question that people will ask you. So if these two are the case and base and percents are given, can you calculate the percentage amount, which is already given in this example? So that is here, yeah, $150. That's the commission she made. So which is calculated based on the base and the percent. So $1,500 multiplied with the 10% or the 0.1, then you will get this $150. So you knew this. You learned finding the percentage amount. So percentage amount is gonna be your percent multiplied with the base. So to find the percentage amount, change the percent to a decimal and multiply by the base. So you already kind of got this idea how to calculate this, but there will be like more example coming that you can understand based on the example. So let's look at the example 2.19. So a buyer for women's sportswear purchased 150 skirts from a manufacturer. Of the group of skirts, 20% were wrap around styles. How many were wrap around? So you have all this to calculate the percentage amount. So you have base and you have a percentage here. So solution will be how much percentage? 20% out of these 150 skirts were wrap around style. And the base is gonna be 150. So you have to multiply this 0.2, which is same as the 20%, and the total skirt amount. So 0.2 multiplied with the 150 and you will get the number 30 as the answer. So that means that 30 skirts out of 150 are gonna be the wrap around styles. Okay, so if you know this percentage and the base, you can calculate this percentage amount. And also you can find the percent. So percent can be calculated based on the percentage amount and the base. To find what percent rate one number is of another, divide the base into the percentage amount. And in the most problems, the base amount is larger than the percentage amount, causing the quotient to be a decimal number. And to find the percent, move the decimal point 2 places to the right and add a percent sign. And if you cannot really get what is really talking, it's always good to get the example. That's gonna help you. So to calculate the percent, you have to know this percentage amount and base as a total, and you can calculate this percent. And here is an example. Example 2.22. So in the shoe department, there are 3 females and 5 male sales associates. What percents are female? So in this example, you have to know the base and you already know the percentage amount. In this case, you have to calculate the base though, because it didn't give you the total number, but you have to calculate the total number of the sales associates. So percent. You don't know the percent yet. Percent is the question, but you know the percentage amount and you can calculate the base. What is the percentage amount? You have to calculate the female. So which is how many female associates? 3. And the base is gonna be not 5 or not 3, but total number of sales associates, which is 3 plus 5, that is gonna be 8. So 3 divided by 8 is 3 over 8. And if you calculate that number, then you will get 0.375. You can also convert this to the percent sign. Then what you have to do, yes, you need to multiply with the 100%. So that means 37.5%. So how can you explain that? How can you read this number? How can you apply that to this question? That means that 37.5% of the sales associates were female. Okay. Also, you can calculate the percent of the male sales associate too. So you just have to change the percent amount, right? And you will get 5 over 8. That means that that's gonna be 62.5. Okay. So you can apply this with the different questions as well. But now you know also how to calculate this percent. And if you know these the components, so the 3 components is percent, percentage amount, and base, you can get any of these number if you know 2 out of these 3 numbers. Okay. And finding the base. Now, if you know percentage amount and percent, then you can calculate the base. So to find the base, divide the percent into the percentage amount. And here is the example. During a back to sale, a school sale, a salesperson in the shoe department sold $888 worth of children's shoes. This dollar amount represented 8% of total sales. Calculate the total department sales. Okay. In this question, what do you know? Yes, you don't know the total amount. So you have to calculate the base, but you know, yes, percentage amount and percent. So what you're gonna do is gonna be 8% out of this total number is gonna be $888. So as you see from the previous slide, the formula to calculate the base is gonna be your percentage amount divided by the percent. So that means that $888 divided by 8%. This case, you also have to make sure that it's not like 888 divided by 8 or something. It is 888 divided by 0.08. So you need to be able to change this percentage format to the actual number with the decimal point. So that is $11,100. That means that your total sales was 11,100, and out of these 8% were from where? Children's shoes, and that amount is $888. And you can apply the different like formula that you learn to calculate the percentage amount and percent, and you can play that around, and you will see that you will always get the same number. So based on this one formula and based on these like three components that you can calculate or base or percentage amount and percent if you know 2 out of these 3 components. Let's look at the next one. So calculate the percent increase or decrease. And you can also calculate this increase and decrease, and that's gonna be really important concept in buying, because also the sales or purchases, you really need to know about this percent increase or decrease. Okay, in this question, so percent increase or decrease can be calculated by difference between two figures divided by previous figure. And to find the percent increase or decrease, determine the difference between the two numbers are divided by the base number. So base number pretty much previous figure, it can be the previous sale and so on, or like a last week sale or something, then you can put that as a base. And the base number is the previous number as in last year, last month, last week, depending on the time frame used. And also this one, it's gonna be really easier to look at the example. So let's look at the example. The sales volume for the fashion jewelry department last year during the month of September was $20,000. This year, September's volume was 22,000. And determine the percent increase in sales. First of all, the sales increased or decreased. There you go. You have to compare the 20,000 and this year you have 22,000. You see that it's increased. And after that, what you're gonna do, you're gonna compare it to the previous sale. So your base is gonna be last year's September sale. And if you remember the formula, that's gonna be this year minus last year's sale divided by last year's sale. So this year, 22,000 minus 20,000, which is gonna be 2,000, divided by last year's sale, which is 20,000. So 2,000 divided by 20,000, you can calculate it and you will get 0.1. And you can quote it as 10% increase. So what does that mean? There you go. That pretty much means that your sales increased by 10% compared to the last year's sale. And what I want you to get from this example, first of all, you have to determine whether the sales increase or not, and you can calculate this percent increase in sales if you know the number for this last year's sales figure and this year's sales figure. And you have to know which one that you have to put as a base. So if you want to compare it to the last year's sale, you will put last year's sale figure at the bottom. And so you can say compared to the last year's sale, this year's sale increased by 10%. So that's pretty much it for chapter 2. So these are all basic. You feel like these are really easy, simple, but really importantly, these are concepts are applied every single calculation for the retail mass and retail buy. So you really have to be able to apply these to the retail mass. And once again, don't forget, these are all really important concepts in the buying. And let's just summarize what you did in chapter 2. So first, we talked about the decimal. So now you know how to calculate, subtract, add this, divide or multiply, and how to round this number. And you learn the unit measure and this dozen based on the fraction. You know how to calculate this fraction. And if you said half of the dozen, that means that what's a dozen? So dozen is equal to 12 units. So if somebody said half of the dozen, that means 6. So you know how to calculate this, and basic percentage calculation, and also the how to use this percent. And as percents are really important concept in retail buy, you need to know how to apply this concept. And the last question that the example we had was about the sales increase or decrease. But not just for that, but when you compare things, these percent concepts are really important. So I really want you to make sure to remember this concept. And that's it for chapter 2. Hopefully you get all these concepts correctly, and we're gonna talk more about the profit the next time. So that's it for chapter 2, and I'll see you next time for chapter 3.